to the Health Practice Hall. And in this broadcast, the last Tuesday of every month, I will try and present to the audience, the English-speaking audience, facts and information regarding fitness, conditioning, nutrition, has many different facets of the complexity of fitness, and try and make it as easily understood as possible. I've been doing this in Japanese for the last 3 years, and last month, the last Tuesday of last month, was the first broadcast in English. Contrary to almost everybody that I know, the reasoning that people are hesitant about me doing a broadcast in English is that there are a plethora of very, very informed individuals doing this type of broadcast, talking about conditioning, weight training, aerobic conditioning, all, like myself, all different facets of conditioning, fitness, the pluses, the minuses, the problems. The difficulty with the internet-based information is, although the information may be accurate, the problem is, does it apply to the individual viewer who's looking at that information? So what I'm trying to do is receive your information on the chat column about problems that you're encountering, whether you're contemplating a beginning exercise program, whether you've done it for a while and running into problems in terms of progress, or whether you're an advanced person and want tips on how to increase your level of proficiency, endurance, strength in your exercise programs. So a little bit of background. I've been in Japan for about 50 years, actually 53 years. And I came to Japan to study judo, and I still do that. In the meantime, I've done several different things. I've been in the fitness business for 50 of those 53 years. Ran and operated a prominent fitness center in Japan and in Tokyo, and then formed my company, and we built fitness gyms in many different areas of the country. Built them, managed them, staffed them. So personally, I've been involved in every asset, from cleaning the mats and sweeping the floors to planning and implementing relatively advanced, quote unquote, very expensive, high-class fitness establishments. That's a matter of interpretation, but that's what I did. For any more information about who I am and what I have done, if you'd like to look at Wikipedia, which is generally correct, and look up Chuck Wilson, the fitness professional, gives you a brief outline of the things I've been able to accomplish in the last 50 years. So in the first broadcast last month, I tried to establish a few guidelines for participation in a fitness program. So we talked about the fitness program should be effective, it should be efficient, and it should be safe. And I added one more to that general description. That was have a built-in mode of continuity. To embark on a fitness program of any level for only a few months and expect rapid progress and perhaps not get it and then stop, your opportunity has passed. Ideally, fitness is a lifelong goal, a lifestyle, if you will, of doing basically what the World Health Organization suggests we do, which is stop smoking, avoid people who do smoke, stop drinking. A little bit rigid on that. That has changed over the years. It used to be 2 glasses of red wine was okay, now it's not, according to the World Health Organization. Individual choices, of course, is up to us. Avoid stress, which is pretty difficult in this day and age. between infectious diseases and economic difficulties. However, exercise is one answer to at least relieving the stress. You probably can't avoid it per se, but you can certainly relieve it through exercise. Nutrition, adequate sleep, keeping your weight within the parameters established by the World Health Organization. Body fat percentages are the guidelines that the World Health Organization has established, between 18 and 25% for women, plus or minus 3%, and between 15 and 23% for men, plus or minus 3%. So within those guidelines, there's no adverse effects on your state of health. Appearances are a separate thing. The advantages of pursuing fitness are internal, where you can't see them, and of course, if you embark on muscular enhancement, your physical appearances have certainly improved somewhat. Performance is the major consideration of most. From my point of view, internal function is the primary benefit you receive from adopting the World Health Organization's guidelines and also professional guidelines regarding exercise. There's a lot of misinformation, and I'll try and correct that information if I can. And if you have any problems with that, you're welcome to write in and elucidate your problems. Criticism, as long as we like a clear explanation, that's fine. If you just write in to say, gee, I don't like the shirt that you're wearing today, that comment will probably be ignored. So at any rate, I'd like to get started. As I said, efficient, effective, safe, and continuous participation in the exercise program are the guidelines that you should be aware of. The other guidelines in terms of conducting your program are fivefold. There's the warming up state, that goes for aerobic conditioning or muscular conditioning. There is aerobic conditioning, which is certainly important, and up until recently was the primary focus of maintaining your health, established by the World Health Organization and by American College of Sports Medicine, respectable bodies of science. And it used to be aerobic conditioning was the primary focus. That has changed, perhaps because of the aging population, but now the priority seems to be muscular conditioning, strength, stamina, probably as a result of age. Functionality diminishes somewhat, enhancing your state of muscular tone or strength contributes to day-to-day function, and I'm reasonably sure that's why they these organizations prioritize that over aerobic conditioning in the last 2 or 3 years. The fourth element is flexibility. The idea of conditioning is that up until this point has been enhancing aerobic capacity, building the muscles that contribute to enhancing aerobic capacity, and stretching the muscles that have been fatigued due to stressing them to the point where they enhance aerobic capacity. So it's that prioritizing of exercise regimens that has, up until very recently, been accepted as what all of us should do. Of course, people have different athletic pursuits, and in those individual pursuits, the prioritizing changes somewhat. For example, your golf game may require that you are much more flexible. At the same time, stress on your lower back and knees require that you have a certain amount of muscular conditioning. So it depends where you are and your level of condition at the time to how you prioritize your exercise program. And lastly, there's a cool down process. basically meaning returning the body to close to what your resting pulse was before you began the exercise program. So 5 areas: warm up, aerobic, strength, stretching, and cool down. Those 5 areas of an exercise program. Again, people have different objectives, but I feel if you ignore any one of those elements, you tend to enter a state of high risk and even moderate risk, and it would be a great deal of benefit if you adhere to participation in all of those different areas. Enters on. Well, this is Mr. Enter, and I don't know if Mr. Enter understands English. Enter-san, 英語話せるか? 話せますか? わかりますかね? So again, today is primarily English, and as I said, after 3 years, there are a great many topics, and tonight's topic is weight loss. And I say revisited because I've touched upon that topic several times in the past in the Japanese language. So it seems to me, which is interesting since I've been involved in this industry for the last 50-odd years, that of all the benefits of exercise, all of the enhancements in terms of increased lung capacity, increased circulation, mobility, performance, it seems that most people are primarily focused on weight loss. So, and truthfully, weight loss has been continually studied. Different methodologies have been tried, tested, and in some cases not worked out very well. And I think part of that is that people don't understand, number one, the nature of fat. What does it do? What is it? So I'd like to get into that a little bit. And then what governs how that fat accumulates and how that fat is used in the body. So let me start there. And then we can get into caloric consumption and different dietary modalities that will facilitate weight reduction. So I think basically a very, very basic beginning is to understand that fat is not only accumulated energy to be used when you run out of other forms of energy. So I'm not going to get into all the different, but basically when you eat and your blood sugar rises, the sugar in your blood that you don't use is transferred in several different processes and stored on your body as fat to be used at a later date if you should need it. So it's energy, stored energy, and that's how most people look at it. It is also a temperature control. So you will find that appetite is stimulated during cold weather, and the food that you eat, if it's not consumed, is stored as body fat. So the tendency is in cold weather, if you don't burn the food you eat, is stored on the body, again, to be used in the future. It is also protects the internal organs against trauma. So people are concerned about, seems like now everybody wants a six-pack, which, well, we all have a six-pack. We just probably can't see it because you have a coating of fat over the six-pack. So how do we get rid of that? Exercise has a extremely positive effect if you pay attention to nutrition, and that seems to be the kicker. So fat is, to review, fat is stored energy. It is protection, warmth, protection against actually fluctuations in temperature, both up and down, and it also protects against physical trauma. So that's the role of fat. It is enhanced or primarily through appetite, and appetite is stimulated by cold weather or not only cold, but low blood sugar. So once your blood sugar drops below a certain point, the body sets off alarms and triggers appetite to make sure it stays up to a level that ensures the body will have a continuing source of energy to continue functioning. The process of how the food you eat and how it transfers from fat to from blood sugar to body fat is somewhat complicated, and I don't think most people, when I try to explain this, their eyes kind of cloud over and they're interested, but not to that extent. So the primary role is, how do I get rid of it? Okay, so you want to reduce your body fat percentage. Number one, how fat are you? Why don't we start there? Currently, there are devices that measure body fat percentages. They are impedance devices, which means you stand on a platform, the device sends a low-level current through your body, and the algorithm determines the impedance of that current and calculates what is impeding that current as the percentage of body fat that you have. Recently, it's been both feet and both hands, a device called InBody in Japan. It measures total body fat percentage in different areas of the body. Fat is stored primarily where there is not sufficient muscle mass to provide the heat and the protection that fat does. So the first place it is stored is around the abdominal area. And of course, underneath the abdominal area is the internal organs, and if they should be damaged, that would be serious, and they require a certain amount of temperature control. So we get back to fat performs that task. So once you measure your body fat percentages and you see in these machines where it's located, you can concentrate on those areas. Spot reduction is simply, it's not that it's not possible, it's that spot reduction is different with the individual. But primarily, as I said, fat disappears according to the preponderance of blood vessels. So if you've ever started a diet and you started to lose weight, you'll find that the facial features are more prominent. It's very quickly, because there are predominance of blood vessels in the face and neck area. So that disappears quickly. And then shoulders, chest, arms, where muscle mass performs the function of heat, warming the body, and protection, that goes next. And that's also a predominance of blood vessels. The last place that blood vessels are prominent is around the waist. And so as a result, fat accumulates there first to perform the function of what muscles do. So all the devices that you see promoted, that you sit there in these vibration type devices, essentially don't work. Simply because they may stimulate the muscle, and they do. The electrical current does force the muscle to contract. Simply because the muscle is contracting doesn't necessarily mean it's burning calories, and doesn't mean that only that area of your body will be reduced. So devices that do the work, that you don't perform the work, that you don't expend energy, usually do not work. So I would suggest, like several people have suggested in more graphic terms, don't buy into the multicolored ads that tell you if you do nothing and just sit there and watch television and put this device on, you will lose weight. That probably doesn't work. And more or less, the other advantages of exercise, of course, you don't get because you're sitting, you're not functioning, you're not moving. So that's a given. So the role of fat, where it's located on the body, and how to lose it. So I'm sure everybody maintains that exercise expends calories, which is true, and therefore you lose body fat. Well, that's not necessarily true. in a moment I'll go into what exercises produce what level of caloric expenditure, so you can listen in on that. For example, if you exercise and say you burn 500 calories of energy. Okay, just for your information, before we proceed, 1 kilogram of body fat is 7,700 calories. But suppose you're very active and you're very physically fit, and you can burn 500 calories in, say, an hour to an hour and a half of exercise. That's fine. The problem with that is, as you exercise, your blood sugar diminishes. So that's where the primary source of energy comes from, is blood sugar. And most people have between 10 and 20 minutes of that. Once that is reduced to a certain point, then the body adds the breakdown of blood fats to provide energy. And that's another 10 to 15 minutes, which is one of the reasons why people have high blood sugar, diabetics. A long-term exercise program, meaning each day 45 minutes to 60 minutes of low intensity aerobic exercise will facilitate burning blood sugar. And then after about 40 minutes of the body utilizing blood sugar and blood fats for energy, it shifts over to burning subcutaneous fat, which is what you want to do. That's all good for the exercise program. The problem is that 500 calories, when your blood sugar drops, it triggers appetite. So if you burn 500 calories of exercise during exercise, and then you eat 600 calories more than you would normally eat, then basically exercise makes you fat, because you've added 100 calories, plus or minus. There's a book about that, if you care to read it, called Dieting Makes You Fat. So, what do? Well, basically, the combination of exercise and nutrition seems to be the most successful. Now, there are shortcuts to this. There are all kinds of dietary programs. There's the vegan diet. There's the Neanderthal diet. There's the zero carbohydrates diet. There's the protein only diet. These things are extremes, and they all have potentially consequences. So what do dietitians recommend? Dietitians recommend that you reduce your overall intake of calories, and you take your 3 meals a day, and you spread that over 5 meals, small meals, primarily of very little sugar, nutritional foods, vegetables, obviously, lean meats, chicken, fish, in small amounts. And you spread those 3 meals over 5 meals, and that continues to stimulate your metabolism. So the overall effect is that your metabolism operates at a high level, and you burn more calories at rest. So that's a little bit tough to handle, because that's not what most people are exposed to. You mean I eat more meals a day and then I lose weight? Well, no. You eat 3 meals a day, and each meal is very small, and it's very low in calories. So it's primarily, like I said, vegetables, lean meats. And then your total caloric expenditure, whatever it is, will be reduced because you're not supplying the energy that you burned. So instead of being hungry and eating 600 calories, you get hungry and maybe you only eat 300 calories. So the net loss is 200 calories. Again, it's a little confusing at first, but I'll get there. So what are other methods that are being employed or advocated now to lose weight? Well, there's intermediate fasting, whereas you finish your last meal 3 or 4 hours before you go to sleep, and then you don't eat again until 1 o'clock in the afternoon the following day. And what that does is forces the body to revert to its stores of energy and burn that for fuel. And if the meals that you eat subsequently, from noon on, have very few carbohydrates, then you will enter a state of potentially ketosis, where you're burning fat for energy and you tend to lose weight. So that's delayed dieting, intermediate dieting. So that's one way. The single simplistic way that I have seen and practiced is very simple, very straightforward, not confusing. Stop consuming sugar, flat out. No sugar in any form. Not easy, not easy, even though it's very effective. I've seen people drop drastically amounts of weight healthily. They still maintain their health and they drop weight efficiently and quickly. The reason is, one of the reasons is, especially in the American diet, is that I believe in the 1960s, manufacturers of food products found that corn syrup was much cheaper, and the sugar they replaced the sugar that was in their refined sugar that was in their products to corn syrup, and it provided a certain amount of flavor, but also prevented the food from spoiling. So all the packaged goods, boxes, cans, bags, added this ingredient, and the shelf life was extended, and it was less expensive. So I have seen people who have dropped tremendous amount of weight, doing nothing more than continuing the exercise program and just stop eating refined sugars. As one nutritionist mentioned, it's not the sugars you see that you can avoid, it's the sugars you can't see. The sugars that are in the can, in the package, in the box. And so as the closer you can get to natural foods, natural vegetables, natural fruits, lean meats, the better off you are in generally from a health perspective. And you will find that body fat will disappear relatively quickly. Now there are always exceptions. There's always exceptions. There's always a DNA predisposition towards putting on fatty weight. They did a study in the South Pacific area, two brothers, one was fat, one was thin, and they found in the obese brother that his DNA had an element that predisposed him to storing energy, so he gained a lot of weight. Now, I'm not going to talk about DNA intervention. Probably in the next 20 or 30 years it will become much more of the norm than it is now, but it is possible to do that. And that's something that's it's kind of unavoidable. It's kind of unavoidable at the current level of science. So, what's the role of exercise then? If it's all about nutrition, well, gee, I just want to lose weight, so why should I exercise in order to lose weight? Well, my view is, if weight loss is your only objective, actually, you don't have to exercise. If weight loss is your only objective, I don't want to gain any of the advantages of endurance, of heart stroke volume increasing, of lung volume expanding, of arteries and veins and arteries that are diminished cholesterol, all of the different advantages. I don't want that. All I want to do is lose weight. Stop eating sugar. You lose weight. Now, if you do that alone, the burden on the heart will be reduced significantly. And that's the truth. Well, okay, so I want to exercise, and I think that will facilitate weight loss, and that's true. That's true. But if you're not careful, it will also stimulate appetite. And so it makes it more and more difficult to avoid refined carbohydrates because your body is craving the sugar. So, how to work that particular balance between energy expenditure and consumption? Well, aerobic exercise is more efficient. Let's start there. So you have the two primary caloric expenditure type of exercise, and that basically is aerobic exercise and resistance training. That's it, 2. So how does that affect your metabolism? How does that affect your appetite? Okay. Running or jogging. Let me give you the brief outline here, because it gets a little bit complicated. When you are jogging or running, what is the level of intensity? Aerobic exercise level of intensity is determined by your target heart rate. Your target heart rate is determined by finding your maximum heart rate, which is 220 and minus your age, and taking a percentage of that figure to determine the level of intensity. So let's take a 20-year-old person. So his, as with all of us, maximum heart rate is 220 beats per minute. He's 20 years old. So his age-related maximum heart rate is 200 beats per minute. Okay. And he wants to exercise to lose weight. Okay. So how does that occur? So if his maximum heart rate, age-related maximum heart rate is 200 beats per minute, and 60% of that is 120 beats per minute, when he is exercising, he should try and maintain that 120 beats per minute level of intensity. That's 60%. And 60% burns approximately, depending on body type, about 6 calories per minute. Okay, so that's 10 minutes, that's 60 calories. 30 minutes, 180 calories. 60 minutes, 360 calories. It's not a lot. Unfortunately, it's not a lot. When you think of 7,700 calories as a kilogram, that means that basically you have to exercise about 20 hours at 60% of your age-related maximum heart rate in order to burn that 1 kilogram of body fat. 20 hours. Well, okay. Nobody has that level of conditioning. Although you can do it an hour a day for 20 days, providing you don't eat more calories than you normally do when you don't exercise. Okay? It gets a little tricky. You gotta be cautious. Okay, well, I can't do that, so I want to shorten that time though. So what else? Okay. Well, I'll raise the bar. So instead of 220 miles, so still 20-year-old man, 200 maximum heart rate, 60% is 120. Well, what is 70? 70 is 140 beats per minute. Wow, well that gets a little intense. So 140 beats per minute. Okay, well that's about 7 calories a minute. So now instead of 180 calories in a 30-minute training session, now you're burning 210. And for an hour, 420. Okay, so now you don't have to do that for 20 hours. You can do it for 18 hours. Still, providing you don't change your diet. Providing you don't eat more than you normally did when you weren't exercising. This is extra burning calories. Burning calories, extra calories. It's a little tricky. They say, well, gee, if 60 or 70% only burns like 6 or 7 calories a minute, why don't I jump it up to 80 or 90%? Well, yeah, you can do that. Over 85%, and you run into a serious risk factor of your heart entering what they call a fibrillative state. And most aerobic professionals clarify the range of aerobic exercise for a training effect is between 60 to 85% of your age-related maximum heart rate. So if it's 85%, number one, you can't do it for very long. You can't do it. The hour you could do it 60%, and the hour you could do it 70%. You can't do an hour 85%. Well, you can't. I mean, it's. I'm sure some people can, but most people cannot. And it's hazardous to try, because once you exceed that, the heart's a pump. The pump's beating so fast that sometimes it stops, and that's called fibrillation. And fibrillation means that your heart essentially stops. Well, if your heart stops, you do too. So the idea is to keep it at a moderate level, 60 or 70%, and that's fine. and do it for as long as you can. Now, there's a different theory out there now, and it's called interval training. Well, interval training has been around for a long time. It was around when I was a kid, and believe me, that was a long time ago. Okay, so the idea is that you sprint for 5 minutes and you walk for 5. And you sprint for another 5 minutes and you walk for 5. And so instead of doing an hour at 60% of your age-related maximum heart rate, now you're doing it for 25 minutes instead of an hour. And you save time. Well, that's true. You do save time. And you do boost the heart rate up very, very high. So ostensibly you're burning more calories during that 25-minute period than you would at 25 minutes at a lower intensity. Ostensibly. However, your heart, especially for an unconditioned person to do that, you don't know if your heart's going to be able to withstand that. And you don't know if you're imposing a burden on the heart that is too much too soon. And it's not gradual. It's pretty significant and pretty sudden. So you're fooling around with those kind of... Plus, if you're sprinting for 5 minutes, the pounding that your lower back and knees are receiving is also pretty significant. So you have that concern. Now, with today's shoes, pricey, granted, cushioned, yes. They will save your joints, absolutely. You may be able to avoid serious compression on your knees and lower back if you're in your 20s or 30s. Well, when you get a little bit older, which unfortunately what happens is if you're not training, then your body mass reduces and your metabolism slows down and you tend to gain weight. And that's when you say, well, gee, I'm getting older now, maybe I better start losing weight. Well, that's fine. Good idea. The burden. HH さんは英語覚えてますね。よく聞いといてよ。These are some of the people that have tuned into the Japanese broadcast and now they're turning into the English broadcast. So I'm going to try and I'll slow down just a little bit. So where was it? Okay. So interval training is okay if you have prepared for it. And it will raise your metabolism and it will burn calories. No doubt about it. It won't burn a lot of calories, not like thousands and thousands of calories. The body's not like that. It doesn't want to burn a whole lot of calories. Enough to keep the body functioning, that's fine. But there's a point where the body just says, that's enough. So, it raises metabolism and you burn calories. The problem is it only does that while you're doing it. There is an overlap depending on how long you do it. So if you do jogging on a treadmill for 60 minutes, the effects on your metabolism may last for another couple of minutes. So you will burn more calories at rest. And that's good. That's fine. But that's it for the day. Period. Weight training does not burn calories like aerobic conditioning does. But it does change your body composition. So it does tend to raise your metabolism. Now, by raising your metabolism, I mean there's a very long formula for clarifying exactly how many calories you burn. But it's very general. It's very general. And it depends on body type. Basically, you're talking about ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph, which are, for the Japanese, naihayo, gaihayo, chuhayo. These are different body types, different composition, different metabolic rate, just different. So where are you on that scale? That would require a testing procedure to find out exactly where you were, to find out where your metabolism is. Exactly. Now you can do this with a stress test and you can have a doctor determine exactly what your metabolic rate is. There also is a formula that if people are interested, I'd be happy to put that formula up on the chart. But basically, it's about 26 calories per kilogram of body weight. Basic. So I weigh 100 kilos, so I burn at rest about 2,600 calories in a 24-hour period. So that's about right for me. I could get more exact, but you can't carry that formula around your head. So just look about 26 calories per kilogram of body weight. 100 kilos, 2,600 calories. So that's my basic metabolic rate. So then you calculate exercise. So say you, for argument's sake, say you exercise at a low intensity, say 60% of your age-related maximum heart rate. 60% burns 6 calories a minute, and you do that for an hour a day. So that's, what is that, 60, 180, 360 calories. And then you do a half an hour of weight training, which is calculated about 5 calories per minute. So that's 5, and you do a 30-minute workout, that's 150 calories. So you add that together with your aerobic conditioning calories, and you come out with a rough figure of how much energy you're expending during the day from exercise. Then you calculate movement during the day, lifestyle considerations. So if you move around a lot during the day, if we're walking around, if you're a salesman, you're walking around Tokyo all day long, you take 50% of your basic metabolic rate. So I'm 2,600, that'd be 1,300 for me. That's 3,900 calories. And I add in the exercise, which is maybe 500 calories. So for me, that's 4,500 calories. And if I don't eat more than that, I will tend to lose weight. That's simple. Well, it's not simple. To keep those figures in your head is not easy. So, stop eating sugar. Period. Stop eating sugar. If you do not eat refined sugars, the sugars in fruit and vegetables are okay. Now, there are different types of sugars, but these sugars you can assimilate. The refined sugars that the manufacturers put in food as a preservative are things you can't assimilate. Some of those sugars you cannot assimilate, so they immediately go to storage, and that's why your body fat percentage goes up. Combine that with age and your muscularity, how much muscle mass you have, contributes to raising or lowering your metabolic rate. So I do 2 hours of training 6 days a week, an hour of aerobic, low intensity aerobic training, and an hour of weight training. So for me, the low level intensity of aerobic exercise, it's not huge, but that's 360 calories put in the plus column. Then I do an hour of weight training. Weight training is probably about 300 calories. That's 660 calories. So if I do a little bit more, a little bit higher intensity, maybe I'll hit 7,070 calories. So in 10 days, I will burn 1 kilogram worth of body fat if I don't eat too much. And that's the kicker. That's the kicker. Because when you stop eating sugar, you get hungry and you want sugar. The body wants sugar. The brain uses sugar almost exclusively for energy. So if you eliminate sugar, you enter a state of kind of withdrawal. Your body will crave it, and it's very tough to ignore that craving. So if your body craves sugar, give it sugar, but not refined sugar. Eat an apple, eat a mikan, eat an orange, eat fruit. It'll give you the sugar you need, and it's easily broken down and assimilated. Refined sugar is not easily broken down and is not easily assimilated. It is stored as body fat. And it doesn't come off easy unless you eliminate it from your diet. Now, I've seen people lose a great deal of weight just by eating sensibly. So you say, okay, well, Chuck, I'm gonna eat sensibly now. Okay, I'm gonna have fresh vegetables. I'm gonna eat fresh fruit. I'm gonna break down my meals from 3 meals to 5 meals, small meals, to continually stimulate my metabolism. I'm gonna exercise every day, and that's fine. That's all fine, but that's a lot of trouble. Why don't I just stop eating? That's a good idea. Stop eating. Well, yes, yes, you could do that. You could do that. You might find after a while that you're not feeling too well. But the problem with that is the body is kind of like another person. And the body doesn't like that. The body doesn't like it. The body says, well, no, you're going to stop. I don't like that. So the body's going to do whatever it can to prevent you from stop eating. And if you don't, what it will call on reserves of energy. So where are the reserves of energy? Well, if you stop eating, yes, your blood sugar will drop. Yes, your blood fats will drop. Yes, you will lose fat. And yes, you will lose a great deal of muscle. And yes, you will get weak, and eventually you'll get sick, and you extend it beyond too much, and you will die. That's what you're fooling around with. Now, most people obviously stop before. You've heard of fasting, week fast, 2-week fast, 10-day fast. That's not a problem. But even in fasting, you're still taking in liquids, and an abbreviated fast, you'd be taking like soups, very, very little carbohydrate, and you'll drop weight, and you'll probably feel substantially better. But where's the protein? And if you don't take in sufficient protein, then your body starts what they call a state where your body consumes muscle, a catabolic state. Sorry, catabolic state where the body consumes muscle for energy instead of fat. Prioritizes burning muscle for energy. So you wind up a weaker person, and your natural defense mechanisms through vitamin and minerals, those go away. So you tend to get sicker, easier. So, is weight loss a good idea? Within limits. Within limits. And I'll go back to the original state. The World Health Organization has set the limits at between 18 and 25% plus or minus 3% for women, and 15 and 23% plus or minus 3% for men. Period. If you exceed that, then your risk of becoming ill, or I hesitate to say life-threatening, but if you exceed that, you place your health in jeopardy. Your physical well-being will suffer if you exceed those parameters. And the opposite is true. If you reduce those parameters, if you drop below 10%, for example, women who drop body fat percent drop below 10%, then they experience amenorrhea, which is cease of the menstrual cycle, and then they wound up with all kinds of problems with bone deterioration, with all kinds of medical problems that I'm not a doctor, so I can't elucidate. Believe me, it's not a good idea. And some countries have eliminated models. They won't hire models that have a body fat below 10% because of the health difficulties involved. That being said, for example, marathon runners, the ideal body fat percent is around, from what I understand, between 10 and 12%. If you're a power lifter, body fat percentage, you get a lot more leeway. It's not 10-12%. But it still should be around 20-25%, except in the heavyweight categories, which, I mean, if they're doing powerlifting anyways, reducing weight is probably not going to help them. I've been there. But that's an extreme. But different sports, for example, judo and wrestling, a little more body fat is desirable because the type of metabolism that's used to funnel the energy for their conditioning. And a marathon runner, again, lower body fat percentage facilitates their running capability. So it depends on where you want to go with this, what your objectives are, what your body type is, and what you eat. So that's where we stand. to review quickly. Okay, body fat percentages established by the World Health Organizations are the guidelines you should probably adhere to. Okay, rapid weight loss. Doctors recommend 1 kilogram of body fat reduction a month, which is not enough for most people. But if you're active and you don't have any pre-existing medical difficulties, 5 kilograms per month is probably something you could accomplish, but keep a track on it. Remember, you start burning all this food, it places a certain burden on your liver and your kidneys, and if you're not 25 years old, say you're 40 or 50, these things I think you should be aware of. You don't have to go down and have it checked every week, but you should every 6 months have a physical examination anyways, and look at these things. And if you want to lose weight and if you want to stay healthy, as much as possible, avoid sugar, especially refined sugars. So there you have it. So nutritional balance, moderate exercise, aerobic, muscular resistance exercises, flexibility to balance out. Exercise should be a lifestyle. It shouldn't be something you do until you achieve a certain objective and then stop. That's not how it works. It's supposed to be a lifestyle pursuit, and I would strongly suggest you do it. There are lifelines that have been presented by scholars, where we reach maturity at the age of 22. In their 20s, our basic body composition tends to, and physical capacity is kind of balanced, doesn't deteriorate that much. And then in your 30s, there's a slight decrease. In 40s, there's a steeper decrease. And in 50s and 60s, things start to slow down. At 70s can be a watershed time in your life, where your life is placed at continued risk because of everything you've done since you were 20. 80s, again, the diminishment of physical capacity in your 80s is significant. The idea with exercise permits you, and not just exercise, but paying attention, like I said, to the World Health Organization, no smoking, no drinking, limited stress, maintaining reasonable body fat percentages, plenty of sleep, exercise daily. If you maintain these objectives throughout your life, that you will maintain a good quality of life as much as into your late 80s and 90s. Now, when you hit 90 and 100, the decrease is precipitous. Precipitous. That means you drop off a cliff. It's very, very steep. And that's what lends poignancy to our lives, is there is an end to our lives. So all of this guarantee they will live longer? Absolutely not. You can get hit by a truck tomorrow. What it does give you an increased quality of life. That's the objective. And weight loss is only one aspect of exercise. And in Kenko Dojo, 1 day a month, we're going to take all of these different contributing factors to making your life a quality life, to extending your life as much as possible, to avoidance of things that will incur injury and perhaps sickness. And the single best thing that you can do as you progress through life, the single best thing you can do is daily exercise. Believe me. The World Health Organization says stop smoking. Well, people don't stop smoking. The World Health Organization says stop drinking. Well, people don't stop drinking. The WHO says avoid stress. Well, it's almost impossible. The economic situation, corona, the violence in our society, it's almost impossible to avoid stress. Keeping our weight under control, you can, but it's not easy. Adequate sleep, sure. 6 to 8 hours of sleep is what's recommended, but some people can't let the stress go, and they can't sleep 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So what is the ameliorating factor? Daily exercise. Daily exercise will help clean out your lungs. It will help get over the negative effects of alcohol. It will it will avoid the accumulation of negative nutritive elements like fat, cholesterol, those kinds of things. It will help you sleep. It will reduce stress. It will keep your weight down, and will keep you active. That's why the World Health Organization included exercise, because it ameliorates all the different negative aspects of all the previous items that you don't do, or you're unable to do. So it's the qualifier that balances out. It's the good that balances out the bad. If you do both, if you do the good and you exercise, you're way ahead of the game. I have seen it. I have seen people come back from literally death-defying situations and in 6 months turn their life around. I know people that have gotten 1 year, 2 year, 3 year death sentences from their doctors, and in 3-4 months of intense exercise and paying attention to lifestyle are living a strong, healthy life. That's the objective. Exercise, fitness, is not the objective. It is the means of obtaining the objective of a quality of life. And as long as you keep that in mind, sure, it may be a little inconvenient and maybe a little bit demanding, but the results are worth it. I've been doing it my entire life, and I'm not the only person that does. And I am 77 years old, and I work out 2 hours every single day, and I still practice judo, and I still lift a reasonably heavy weight, and I work a full 12-hour day every single day, and I enjoy doing it. And that's not bragging. That's just what exercise and living a proper lifestyle allows you to do, permits you to do. All of our lives have value. All of our lives. But if you are physically debilitated, you cannot access that value. You can't. Anyways, I sincerely hope that those listening will take this to heart. It's an appeal on my part. I see people that have everything going for them, and they have not paid attention to their health, and at a very, very prematurely young age suffer the consequences. It's just sad, because it is easily prevented. Easily prevented. An hour a day. Out of 24 hours, an hour a day. So when people say, I don't have time, I find that very difficult to believe. Very difficult to believe. You have the time. You just don't think it's important. And that's understandable too. It's called an immortality complex. It's not going to happen to me. That's called immortality. I'm going to live forever. All of these afflictions, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, not me. Him, her, but not me. It's not going to happen to me. People believe this. And so they say, well, I don't have to exercise because it's okay. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. Flat out. It is not okay. Now, your choice is your choice. It's your life to choose. I hope that I can help you with traveling the maze of what is appropriate for you. So, this is the English broadcast, and the next broadcast will be on April 24th, and we'll go through the exercise, the benefits, and the risks involved in exercise. So it'll be somewhat what we've talked about today a little bit, but we're going to get into weight training, resistance training, what you should and should not do, and if you do it wrong, what's waiting for you, and if you do it right, what's waiting for you. Anyways, it's going to be positive. It's not all negative. And like I said, we're doing it for 2 years in Japanese, and so all I have to do is do it in English. We'll see how good my English is. So if you've listened to this, I appreciate you tuning in. If you don't know where Kenko Dojo is, you can look at the chuckwilson.co.jp, Kenko Dojo. It'll get you to this place. And I hope you're listening. I hope somebody's listening. But this doesn't cost you anything. It costs you a little bit of your time. I understand your time is precious, but so is your life and so is your well-being. So I hope that you find this informative And if you would like to suggestions, please write in the chat overlay. You can type in questions or summations or whatever. The last Tuesday in every month is the English broadcast, and the first, second, and third is in Japanese, and it'll be a little bit different. So I thank you for listening in English. And Enter さん and HH さん、これで、全部分かったかどうか分かんないけど、まあどっちか言うと初めての人のための、説明なんですけど、これからまあ、4回のうち1回だけはこの英語の放映やりますので、どうぞチャットでもやってくれました。ありがとうございました。ちょっと寂しかったちょっと英語の人はあんまりコメント書いてないなと、聞いてないかなと、どうも。でもとにかくこれもやってみないと分かんないから、ちょっとやつどなたさんですかあ、そうですか。黒船火。良いと思いますか。ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。力強い力強い。また来週はちゃんと日本語ちゃんとじゃないよ、日本語のブロードキャストちゃんとやりますので、もう最後の手術も終わったんで、ボルト全部抜いて、もう2週間3週間経ってるから、最後の傷を見てて、もう傷もきれいに治ってから、もうガンガンやって、もう昨日はちゃんとしたベンチプレスに戻って、久しぶりに160キロちゃんとやりましたまあ現役とちょっと違うけど、まあそれはちゃんと、やってますので、来月の末には全日本講談社大会そのも出るやつ、今度の金曜日は、稽古に戻ります。久しぶりに、それも本当にまあ完璧ということはまあまあ半年までかかるから、ネジの入ってるボルト入ってることでまだ完全に閉まってないから。でもあれはかなりそれこそストレスはなくなってます。もう怪我してるこの辺にずっとやったんだから、気をつけないといけないもんだから、あれは全部なくなります。結構気分が楽になってますから。はい、そういうことですから、本当にもうこれからありがとうございました。よく参加してくれました。また来週よろしくお願いします。では皆さん、まあ今年も頑張ってやりたいと思いますので、まあ4月、それから、ゴールデンウィークも入るから、ゆっくり休んで、体回復してガンガンやりましょう。はい、ではまた来週よろしくお願いします。では失礼します。Thank you all for tuning in. See you the end of next month, 24th, 7:30. Hope you're listening.